And so I started talking to my husband about it, and he really didn't realize how much I didn't like my first birth. And when I started talking to him about it, he understood that I really wanted something different. And so we went looking for a midwife. And I actually found the midwife through people at my yoga class and people that had actually used this midwife. And I did some reading, I did some research. I didn't go into it blind because I definitely want what's safe and what's good for my children. So when I realized that home births have as good a reaction or result, as good a result as hospital births, if not better, then I said, there's no reason for me not to try this, because what I was going to get was the hospital birth that I did not want. And I just knew I was going to end up with a C-section. And that was, there was no way that I wanted that. I didn't think I needed it, and I did not want it. So I switched for...
At about how many months did you switch?
I actually didn't switch until I was almost 6 months.
Wow.
I would have liked to have switched my medical groups, but at a certain point, if you're on HMO, you can't.
Right.
So I was stuck with them. So I made my decision to go with a midwife, and I did have to pay out of pocket for that. It depends. If you have like a PPO, sometimes you don't have to pay out of pocket.
Right.
But
did the insurance cover anything?
No.
But I mean, even the amount of the midwife is still low in comparison to what they're billing the insurance company. Yeah.
The amount of the midwife is low, but it was also worth it to me to not end up with a C-section and to have it happen the way I wanted it.
Right.
And I did do what's called parallel care the whole time, which meant I went to my regular doctor.
Who had no idea?
Who had no idea.
I know.
That I was having a midwife and a home birth. But I went to my regular doctor. They did all the tests. I paid, all the lab work was done through them. Because I did have a risk factor in this pregnancy, and I wanted to make sure that my baby was fine.
Right.
So all the way through, all the way up to when I was overdue. And I actually loved my meetings with my midwife. We talked for an hour, if you can imagine.
That's a long time to spend on OB care.
Yeah, with the other OBs, because at one point I was going, twice a week to see once to see my midwife, once to see my OB. It would be like 10 minutes tops.
In and out.
And they just check you a week overdue. And my medical group freaked out, and basically they dropped me because I wouldn't come in to be induced.
Oh, are you serious? Your medical group had no idea?
No. And when I told them...
At 7 days they wanted to induce you?
Yes.
Oh my God.
In fact, actually the doctor offered to induce me on my due date. She said, why don't we just go in and induce you? I said, no, you said I had 7 days. And so at 7 days they wanted to induce me, and I said I wasn't going to do that, and that I was going to have a home birth, and then they dropped me. They sent me a registered letter and dropped me. They
heard you. Oh, you actually admitted you were...
Which my midwife was like, why'd you do that?
Why did you do that? I know.
But they wanted me to come in and be induced, and I wasn't ready to have the baby yet. He wasn't ready to come out.
What was their justification for them thinking?
7 days.
That's it?
That's the most that most of them will give you.
That's true. Over in the South Bay, it's very bad.
Most of them will give you is 7 days. And at that point, they're like, come in and be induced. And I knew I was going to have the same exact pregnancy again. It was going to be, the induction wasn't going to work because I wasn't ready to have the baby, and then I was going to, this time they weren't going to give me the extra time. I was just going to have a C-section, and that's not what I wanted.
Right.
So I actually did have a non-stress test, and I went to another midwife for that, and so they checked to make sure that there was no problem with the baby, and no problem with the baby, and no problem with me. And then I did my darndest to get this kid out. I walked him, and I did all sorts of stuff that's supposed to start labor. And I had contractions, but they were nothing that were really, strong. And so they were pretty consistent, but not strong. And finally, at 9 days overdue, I woke up at 6 in the morning, and I was like, okay, no, this time I'm going to have a baby. Because these were starting, they called my attention, I had to pay attention to them. I had to think about how to breathe through them. I used my birth ball at the beginning. I even checked to see how far apart they were, so I could call my midwife and tell her about that. And Mary Lou said, hang out, see if they get any stronger. and be sure and get your tub filled because I had a water birth. So she's like, get your tub started. This is your second birth. You might have the baby quicker. So my girlfriend who had been my labor assistant or doula the first time too, she came over, and it was really good to have another woman present because she knew how I felt through labor. But also she was able to find the positions through the hip squeeze, which is counter pressure during a contraction and really helps make you be able to like push through that contraction. And my husband could never find the right spot. He was great between contractions, joking and rubbing my back and all of that, but during the contraction she was the one who could find the hip squeeze position. So my midwife came over around 11:30 noon, checked me, and I was at 6.
Wow.
And so I stayed out of the tub. I'd gone in the tub for just a little bit, and it really felt so good to be in this big warm birth tub. So I think you totally lost the picture of that. So I got out of the tub, and my midwife checked me. I was 6 centimeters, and I was GBS positive, which is something that you need medication for. So she gave me the medication at that point. And I took kind of a rest just on the bed and relaxed for a while. And then she said that I should try and start some different positions to see if I could really get the baby to move down and really get labor going. And I was almost in transition, so I did squats. I actually held on to the side of the birth tub and was using that to help me squat. And that I could really feel the pressure with that. But it was nice because nobody was telling me that I had to lay in the bed or that I had to do this or that. It was whatever felt good to me at the time. And people were just kind of like hanging out and checking to make sure that I was okay.
She had complete freedom of movement.
Anything I wanted to do in my house, I did make them all eat when I was in the other room because the smell of food didn't really work for me. But I got all the fluids I wanted. I hydrated really well, which was something they didn't let me do in the hospital.
No, they don't feed you. They don't let you eat.
Nothing. So I had lots of coconut juice, which tasted wonderful for whatever reason. And I just felt really good. I got very tired towards the end, and I got into the tub, and I started. My water didn't break until right when I was ready to push.
Wow.
So that was really nice because that was one of the major issues with my first son. So it didn't break until I was ready to get into the tub. And then I got in the tub and I pushed him out in 39 minutes.
Wow.
So yeah, blowing my raspberry lip.
That's right.
And actually holding my own legs.
You did?
Yeah. No.
In the tub?
Pushing you in the tub. I was holding my own legs. And my husband was holding me up so I didn't slide down just to give me the stability that I needed. And it was wonderful. He came out and I held him in the tub for about 20 minutes while we waited for the placenta to come out. So I got to just hold him in the tub, and he was a little purple, but he was a little purple, but perfectly fine. The rest of everything was great. He moved. He had his eyes open. We even nursed a little bit in the tub.
Breathing fine.
Everything was fine. And with my other son, they'd taken him away because he was a little purple and given him oxygen and all that. This time they had it ready if they needed it, but didn't need it. He didn't need anything. And I had sent my older son out for the day with his grandparents. My plan had been to have him home with me, but I needed to really focus, and so I found that he had to go with his grandparents. So that was one of the changes that I had to make. I would have liked him home with me, but he was distracting me, and I needed to focus on my contraction and working through it. And at one point, my midwife said, I don't know exactly why this is taking so long because it's the second baby. You should just kind of push him out. And it turned out he was 9 pounds 12 ounces, and that's when she's like, okay, that's what was taking you so long.
Yeah.
You had to open up for a 9 pound 12 ounce baby.
Yeah.